Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we'll be talking about one tragic sinking that claimed the lives of 20 crew members and 35 passengers. 10 bodies were never found and only 9 people were rescued. The ship I'm talking about is the MS Jan Heweliusz, a vessel forever remembered for the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster involving a Polish ship. In today's video, we'll go through the full story of this ill-fated ship from her beginnings to her final voyage, the rescue operation, and the aftermath that followed. The MS Jan Heweliusz, a key Polish ferry that served as a vital maritime link between two nations. Her regular route ran between the port of Świnoujście in Poland and Ystad in Sweden, a crucial connection for passengers, tourists, and commercial traffic across the Baltic Sea. The Jan Heweliusz had a reputation for reliability on this routine journey, a voyage she had completed countless times before. But this reputation would be tragically shattered on what was to be her final, fateful voyage. The ship would be owned by the Polish Ocean Lines and constructed by the shipbuilders Trosvik Werkstedt AS. The gross tonnage of this vessel would be 3,015 gross registered tons. Her length overall was 125.6 meters, or about 412 feet, with a beam of 19 meters, or approximately 62 feet. She was powered by 2 Cegielski-Sulzer diesel engines, giving her a service speed of around 16 knots. Her capacity was significant. She could carry 400 passengers and a substantial amount of cargo, including trucks and trailers on her vehicle decks. The design features of a ro-ro ferry are critical to understanding this disaster. Unlike traditional ships with cargo hatches, ro-ro vessels have large, open car decks at the stern that allow vehicles to roll on and roll off. The stability of such a ship relies heavily on the watertight integrity of these decks. If water were to enter a phenomenon known as the free surface effect, it could slosh from side to side, drastically reducing the vessel's stability. Furthermore, the large superstructure she had above the waterline, necessary for passenger accommodations, made the ship more susceptible to strong winds. These inherent design characteristics, combined with the severe weather she would encounter, created a perfect storm of risk factors. The ship would be launched on the 29th of January, 1977. The Jan Heweliusz had a service history that included at least one notable event. In December of 1982, the ferry had suffered damage to her bow visor during a storm, an incident that required repairs. This previous damage and the nature of those repairs would be examined closely in the aftermath of the sinking. But in September 1986, the ship was struck by a severe fire. Although everyone on board escaped unharmed, the vessel sustained extensive damage. Repairs were carried out by covering the damaged sections with 60 tons of concrete, a move that increased the ship's weight and dangerously compromised her stability, an approach reportedly illegal at the time. The ship set sail at 10:30 p.m. on the evening of 13th January 1993, 2 hours behind schedule. Under the command of Captain Andrzej Ułaszewicz, she was carrying 35 passengers, 29 crew members, 28 trucks, and 10 rail cars. All crew members were Polish. The weather at departure was already deteriorating, but it was nothing the vessel and her experienced crew hadn't faced before. The forecast, however, warned of a significant storm developing in the Baltic, a storm that would far exceed normal winter conditions. The storm we're talking about was Storm Verena, which was sweeping across the Baltic Sea. As the ferry steamed northwest towards Ystad, the weather situation intensified dramatically. A deep, low-pressure system was moving across the sea, generating hurricane-force winds reaching Beaufort Force 12. Wave heights were reported to be between 6 and 8 meters, or 20 to 26 feet, with some accounts suggesting even larger swells. The ship was being battered by the full fury of the storm. Early signs of trouble began to emerge. The crew reported that the vessel was experiencing heavy rolling and pitching. More alarmingly, there were indications that seawater was finding its way onto the vehicle deck, possibly through the bow visor or the stern ramp. This water, sloshing freely across the wide open deck, began to critically compromise the ship's stability. The sequence of events leading to the critical moment accelerated in the early hours of January 14th. Radio communications from the Jan Heweliusz indicated the crew was fighting a losing battle against the elements and the increasing list of the ship. They reported severe rolling and a loss of stability. The situation was becoming desperate. At approximately 4 a.m., the ferry transmitted her final tragic message: "We are capsizing." This was followed by the sound of crashing and chaos before the transmission went dead. The vessel had disappeared from radar. What happened in those final minutes was a rapid and terrifying loss of stability. The combination of the storm's power, the probable failure of cargo securing allowing trucks to shift, and the free surface effect of water on the vehicle deck likely caused the ship to list severely to one side. Once this list reached a critical angle, the ferry would have been unable to recover, leading to a rapid rollover. The Jan Heweliusz, with all her lights likely extinguished by the power failure that accompanies such an event, turned turtle in the freezing darkness. The moment the ferry began listing severely was the point of no return. That final radio message, "We are capsizing," was not an observation, but a declaration of a battle already lost. The violent motion of the storm, combined with the free surface effect of water sloshing uncontrollably across the vehicle deck, had fatally compromised the ship's stability. The list would have increased rapidly, a tilt that made movement on board nearly impossible. Furniture, equipment, and most critically, the unsecured cargo on the vehicle deck would have begun to slide violently to the low side. This shift in weight acted like a pendulum, pulling the ship further over. Within minutes, the list became a roll. The Jan Heweliusz, unable to right herself, succumbed to the forces against her. The ship would have rolled onto her side, her superstructure slamming into the towering waves before completely inverting. The entire event, from the critical list to her final capsize, likely took only a few terrifying minutes for those trapped inside. The launch of the international rescue effort was swift, but faced almost insurmountable challenges. Polish, German, and Swedish rescue coordination centers scrambled aircraft and vessels. Helicopters were dispatched, but the storm conditions made flying extremely dangerous, with high winds and severe turbulence. Surface vessels, including Polish Navy ships and German lifeboats, battled their way toward the scene. The primary challenge was simply reaching the location. Waves reaching 8 meters high meant that even large ships were being thrown about, making progress slow and hazardous. The rescue vessels themselves were in constant danger of being damaged or capsized. The overturned hull of the Jan Heweliusz presented another huge problem. It was a smooth, slippery surface rising and falling violently with the waves. There were no easy points for rescuers to attach lines, and the risk of the wreck suddenly sinking created a deadly environment for anyone attempting to get close. Miraculously, despite the odds, some survivors were pulled from the freezing water. These were individuals who had managed to escape the interior of the ship as she capsized, or in the immediate moments afterward. They found themselves in the water, clad only in their regular clothing, fighting for their lives in temperatures that would cause hypothermia within a quarter of an hour. The rescue of these individuals was a testament to the skill and bravery of the rescue crews. Helicopter winch operators had to lower rescuers into the raging sea to grab survivors who were likely already losing consciousness from the cold. Each successful recovery was a small victory in a largely tragic outcome. In total, only 9 people were saved from the sea. The devastating final death toll was 55 lives lost, including the captain, all the other officers, and most of the passengers. It was a catastrophic loss that sent shockwaves through Poland and Sweden. The recovery of the wreck and the victims became a prolonged and somber task. The overturned hull of the Jan Heweliusz remained afloat for some time, a grim marker of the tragedy. Tugboats were eventually able to secure lines to the wreck, but the attempt to tow the unstable hull to shore was abandoned when it began to take on more water and sink. On January 16th, just 2 days after the capsizing, the wreck finally slipped beneath the waves and settled on the seabed at a depth of around 27 meters, or about 89 feet. Divers later visited the site to search for victims and to document the wreck for the official investigation. The recovery of the victims' bodies would continue for weeks, as the sea slowly returned them to the shorelines of Poland and Germany. Each discovery was a heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of the disaster. The scale of the loss necessitated a thorough and definitive investigation to determine the cause and, hopefully, prevent a similar tragedy from ever happening again. This transition from rescue to investigation would be fraught with its own complexities and controversies. The formation of the Polish Investigative Commission began almost immediately. The Polish Chamber of Maritime Commerce, the government body responsible for such inquiries, assembled a team of experts to examine every conceivable factor. Their task was monumental: to piece together the final hours of the ship from the wreckage, the limited radio communications, and the accounts of the few survivors. Initial findings and hypotheses pointed in several directions. The extreme weather was an obvious contributing factor, but the investigators knew that ships are designed to withstand storms. The focus quickly turned to the vessel's stability and the specific events that led to the catastrophic loss of that stability. The examination of the wreckage, though limited by its depth and condition, would be crucial. Stability calculations were run and rerun, modeling the ship's behavior in the conditions she faced. The role of cargo securing became a primary concern. Had the trucks on the vehicle deck broken their lashings and shifted? As well, critically, how much water had entered the vehicle deck and through what point of failure. The bow visor, which had a history of damage, was a prime suspect. Early conclusions suggested a cascade of failures, a combination of severe weather, possible cargo shift, and water ingress, leading to free surface effect that overwhelmed the ship's ability to recover. However, These initial findings were just the beginning of a long and contentious process. The official investigation, led by the Polish Chamber of Maritime Commerce, faced the difficult task of assigning cause to a tragedy where much of the evidence lay at the bottom of the sea. Their work involved meticulous analysis of the wreckage via diver surveys, computer modeling of the ship's stability, and interviews with the survivors. One of the most critical pieces of evidence was the condition of the bow visor. Divers confirmed that the visor was missing from the wreck, suggesting it had been torn off by the force of the waves, likely before her capsizing. This failure would have created a massive opening for seawater to flood directly onto the vulnerable vehicle deck. The stability calculations were revealing. They showed that the Jan Heweliusz, even in her modified ro-ro configuration, should have had sufficient stability to withstand severe weather, provided its watertight integrity remained intact. The investigation therefore pointed to a sequence where the loss of the bow visor allowed a critical amount of water to enter. This water, sloshing freely across the wide deck, initiated a dangerous list. This list, in turn, could have caused the heavy cargo, the trucks, to break their lashings and slide, further shifting the ship's center of gravity and sealing its fate. The early conclusions pointed squarely at multiple factors converging: the extreme storm, the structural failure of the visor, and the subsequent cargo shift and free surface effect. However, this technical explanation would soon be overshadowed by a more contentious legal interpretation. The official ruling, when it was delivered, sent shockwaves through the maritime community. The Polish court ultimately placed the primary blame on the crew, specifically on the decisions of Captain Andrzej Ułaszowicz. The court found the captain guilty, posthumously, of exposing the ship to immediate danger leading to its loss and the death of people, citing that he should not have sailed into such a severe storm or should have altered course to seek shelter. This verdict was met with immediate and strong dissent from maritime experts, unions, and the families of the victims. Critics argued that the ruling ignored the fundamental technical flaws of the vessel. They pointed to the known issues with the bow visor design and its previous damage, arguing that no amount of seamanship could have compensated for a critical structural failure. The arguments about the vessel's inherent stability issues gained traction, with some experts contending that the ferry's stability curve, the graph that shows a ship's ability to right itself at different angles of heel, was insufficient for the conditions it was certified to operate in. The long-term legal and professional repercussions were significant. The case became a landmark example of the tension between blaming human error and acknowledging systemic or design failures in maritime disasters. For the families of the crew, the posthumous conviction was a painful addition to their loss, feeling that the sailors were being made scapegoats for the failures of the ship owners and regulators. This controversy ensured that the legacy of the Jan Heweliusz would be debated for decades. Tragedy, compounded by a fight over accountability and memory. The human impact of the disaster was, and remains, profound. The scale of the loss, 55 lives, represented a devastating blow to the communities connected to the ferry. The victims were not just statistics. They were sailors, truck drivers, tourists, and families. Personal stories emerged from the tragedy, painting a picture of ordinary lives tragically cut short. There was the young couple traveling to Sweden for a holiday, the experienced trucker making a routine delivery run, and the entire crew of dedicated mariners, from the captain to the kitchen staff, who were simply doing their jobs. The impact on families and communities in both Poland and Sweden was immense. Memorials and commemorations have been held over the years, most notably a monument in Świnoujście honoring the victims. The legacy of the disaster for maritime safety, however, is its most enduring consequence: the sinking of the Jan Heweliusz, along with other ro-ro ferry. Disasters like the Herald of Free Enterprise contributed to a major overhaul of international safety regulations for such vessels. New rules focused on improving stability standards, mandating stronger bow door designs, and requiring more rigorous procedures for securing cargo and managing water on vehicle decks. The tragedy served as a harsh lesson, written in the lives of those who were lost. The lasting impact of the Jan Heweliusz disaster is a complex tapestry of grief, controversy, and reform. The vessel's story stands as a stark cautionary tale about the interplay between human judgment, engineering design, and the unforgiving power of the sea. While the official record may place blame on the captain's decision to sail, a broader view acknowledges a chain of failures where a known structural weakness met historically bad weather. The changes to ro-ro ferry safety regulations that followed are the direct legacy. Of the 55 people who perished that night, their loss forced the industry to confront the unique vulnerabilities of these ships and implement changes that have undoubtedly saved lives since. The story of the Jan Heweliusz is not just a historical account of a shipwreck. It is a permanent reminder of the cost of complacency and the enduring need for rigorous safety in all maritime endeavors. And that brings us to the end of today's story. The MS Jan Heweliusz may have vanished beneath the Baltic over 30 years ago, yet her memory endures, etched not only in maritime history, but in the hearts of those who still mourn her loss. Every safety improvement that followed carries a silent tribute to the 55 lives lost that stormy night. And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now, be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.